Morning, everyone. I'm opening up the meeting for the fiscal year 2026-27 Douglas County Compensation Board. My name is Dan Wilson. I'm the Chief Financial Officer and Budget Officer for Douglas County. With me, I have Michael Kurtz, who is our Human Resources Director. The first item on the agenda is to appoint a chair for these proceedings.
I'd make a motion we nominate Katie Jones as our chair.
I'll second that.
The motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Okay, so you're gonna start this, correct? You're gonna give us an explanation?
Yes. So, the purpose of this meeting, it is under section or Oregon Revised Statute 204.112, and I will read from that. Each county governing body shall appoint a county compensation board. And the compensation board shall annually recommend a compensation schedule for the elected officers mentioned in ORS 204.005. And that states that it's the sheriff, county clerk, county assessor, county treasurer, and county commissioners. The only thing that I will add to that is that the sheriff's salary shall be fixed in amount which is not less than that for any other member of the sheriff's department. So the sheriff has to be the highest paid person in the sheriff's department.
So now it wants us to approve the minutes of the 2025 meeting. Do we have those
I
here?
have this here, right here.
Okay. Yep.
I looked over them and as much as my memory will allow, I would make a motion to approve our minutes from 25-26.
I'll second that.
Having a first and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. So I'm not supposed to ding that, sorry. Need to move that. Then we move on to discuss the budget directions.
So once again, Dan Wilson. The overall general county personnel budget, the board approved a 2% COLA for all positions in the general county. There are many employees that are part of bargaining groups that are directed by those separate documents, and those are included in the budget as well. The only thing I'll add to that is that last year there was quite a bit of uncertainty as far as revenues go for the county. SRS, Rural Schools, had not been reauthorized. It has since been reauthorized, as well as some other developments that are encouraging as far as overall county revenues. So I would add that as well.
And may I ask a question? So last year were we at 3% COLA or was it 2% then as well?
Three.
3, I thought last year was 3, so it's a lower COLA rate this year?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Good information. Okay, discuss elected officials' compensation. Is that you?
I could certainly start that off.
Okay.
And so, Michael Kurtz, HR Director,
I'm sorry.
Douglas County. So once again, I'm bringing forward some recommendations to this committee to consider. Those recommendations are non-binding, so you can either accept those recommendations, reject those recommendations, or modify them in any way that you see fit. Before I go into the details of the recommendation, I think it might be good for me to just give you a little bit of background about the process that fed into those recommendations. So I look at the elected officials' compensation in the same manner and methodology that I do with all of the positions that we have here within county government. So there's really two parts to that. There is the wage scale part. So what is the fair compensation for that particular job classification, given the skill set that's required, educational requirements, any type of special certifications it might have, as well as what are comparator agencies paying for similar types of positions. So we do that with, at different times throughout the year and at different intervals. We try to do that with all of our classifications on a fairly regular basis. Some of that is driven through a union process, so when we have union negotiations, we automatically pull up comparators because that's part of the discussion. When we're talking about strike prohibited bargaining units such as law enforcement, the comparators are a statutory element that is considered if we end up going to an arbitration hearing to decide what the fair compensation is for those employees. So comparators is a key part of that. Again, we're looking at also what our budgets can handle, and again, we're looking at trying to pay those positions fairly so that we're able to do well with recruitment as well as also do well with retention of our employees. So same methodology I've applied over the last, I don't know how many years I've been here as HR director to the elected officials, and that's fed into my recommendations. My hope has always been is that we get the wage scales set in a fairly reasonable manner so that from year to year, we're not having to relook at, are we paying them fairly? And more, we're looking at what is the cost of living increase that we need to apply to the pre-existing salaries that we already have. Now, whether or not we've been able to do a good job with that, I think that's open for debate, and different perspectives can feed into that. But I think overall, from my perspective, we've done a fairly good job of resetting the wage scale from what it was 5 years ago to something that's much more fair and reasonable given the positions that we have as elected officials and the expectations that we have of them as professionals leading those departments. So wage scale, that's part. The other part is COLA. What is a fair COLA each year? So that one's a little bit of a moving target. Some of that has to do with budget, as Dan was talking about. Other parts that has to do, obviously, is what kind of we're looking at nationally, regionally, and locally in terms of cost of living increases. It's hard to really get distilled data that's really specific to just Douglas County around what cost of living increases are. The U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics put out statistics for the Western region, CPI. That Western region is pretty broad, encompasses a lot of urban areas, some rural areas, but it's more of a bellwether rather than a laser-focused, pointer of exactly what the CPI increase is here in Douglas County. So when we begin this process of budgeting, we began this, early January, sometimes even before that in December. I start looking at what the CPI for the Western region is looking at. For the calendar year 2025, the CPI was 2.32%. That was the increase over that year period. And so that really fed into, Dan has to start getting those, budget instructions and ideas in his head in January about where we're headed so he could start calculating out all the personnel costs and increases. So we started with that 2%. As we all know, there's been some changes in world events over the last 5 months that have impacted costs, especially around fuel costs. But even with that, I was a little bit surprised. I did pull up the CPI from July 1st, 2025 through May 2026, so not quite a year from July, but that was 2.89%. So 2% COLA is still, in my mind, fairly reasonable. It's a moving target. It's one that we over the years have made adjustments to kind of after the fact. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen over the course of a year. You could have another, knock on wood, hope we never have it again, but another pandemic or something happen where it's shutting down supply chains, cost of living goes up unexpectedly. We only did 2% COLA for that year and things were up, 4 or 5%. The board's been pretty good about, okay, let's do a combination of things. Work on adjusting the wage scales, and we'll do a moderately higher COLA in conjunction with that. So they might do a 3 or 4% COLA instead. So those are all the things that we factor into when we're trying to figure out wages. We also internally, and this factors in, I think, with our elected officials as well. So like with department heads, which are kind of unique classifications, we look at all of those same considerations, but we also take a look at how do they compare with each other within the county government structure. So size of the department, number of employees they oversee, size of the budget, the qualifications that are required for the position, the amount of risk that they have to manage. So you can have somebody who, like a county council, who's in a small position with a small budget with a limited number of staff. The amount of risk that they manage is exponentially higher than a lot of other department heads within the county. And so all of that, and of course also we're still looking at outside comparators as well. You know, what are we paying for? What are other agencies, county governments, cities paying for similar positions within their governmental structures as well? So all of that then was applied to our elected officials, that same process. We looked at comparators. The comparators piece is a little bit challenging because you see one of the 36 counties in Oregon, you see one of the 36 counties in Oregon. Every county does things a little bit differently. The governance structure is a little bit differently. Some counties have county administrators that handle the day-to-day operations. Some counties like Douglas County do not, and our county commissioners are the county administrators. You have some of the, what we have for elected officials are non-elected officials in some other counties where you have a surveyor and assessor that's not elected. They're actually appointed and hired. So there's some differences there as well. Again, we truly try to distill down to, you know, trying to make an apples to apples comparisons when we're looking at the comparables so that we're being as fair as possible. So all of that fed into the recommendations that I had before you. And unless there's any questions about that process, I'm willing to just jump right in and talk about my recommendations.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, I think you do a great job in doing this. You know, while we want to have a fair salary, we also want Douglas County to be an attractive place to work, and retention is so important. So I want to commend you on, over the last several years, putting this together, and we've brought wages up and salaries up to where they're, I think, comparable to many other counties in the state.
So thank you, Tom, for that. So another thing that I think is unique about, I mean, elected officials are uniquely positioned differently than just regular employees by just virtue of the fact that they're elected. They don't all necessarily have to have the same qualifications as the employees that they supervise. But I think as members of the public, at least I'll just speak for myself as a voter, I certainly have professional expectations, high professional expectations of who I'm voting for and who I want in that office. And I think that's an important consideration that we need to have when we're trying to set these wage scales for elected officials is, you know, what are our professional expectations? And based on those professional expectations, what's the reasonable pay that should be compensation to meet those expectations as well? So I just think that's an important aspect to consider. Okay.
Thanks.
I appreciate that, thank you. Is there any other comments? I would also like to thank you for all the work you put in to propose for this. A lot of research goes in, a lot of information is given to us to look at between you and Dan. That's a lot of work. I appreciate that. That helps us make decisions. I can remember the first year I came asking for all this information and not having the numbers to look at. I'm a numbers person. I want to look and see them. So I appreciate all the work you put into getting this, because it's a lot of work as a citizen to try to get what you put on here. Because I did that one year. I called and got all these numbers. It was time consuming and a huge pain. So I really appreciate that you guys did that for us.
I appreciate you saying that, Katie, thank you.
Okay.
So recommendations, so I'll just work through my recommendations here. So I'm gonna have these recommendations, and then I also have something at the very end that relates to some changes in Oregon ethics law that also impacts elected officials' compensations that I also want to recommend, and I'll talk about that separately in more detail. But the sheriff, we have the sheriff historically set already above the undersheriff. What we've done in the past is whatever the undersheriff receives in terms of COLA, we've just applied that to the sheriff, and it keeps that separation moving forward. So the recommendation here is general county is getting a 2%, the undersheriff is getting a 2%. The way the unions were set up on their compensation and the whole compression, that it's kind of 2% working its way up that chain of command. So my recommendation is 2% for the sheriff as well.
Okay,
Do we wanna vote on these separate?
that's what I'm gonna ask.
That's a good idea.
We're voting on each one separately, so we're gonna discuss each one and then make a
Sure.
vote for each one instead of doing the whole thing, okay.
Yep.
So, the recommendation is for a 2% increase on the sheriff's salary. Has everybody got your sheet in front of you? We don't, so do we wanna discuss that anymore?
Well, I'll also move that we do that to 2%.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Oh, it's just evident that we have.
Yeah.
There's no choice in that, really. We have to pay more than the
It's
undersheriff.
statutory, correct? We don't, our hands
The
are kinda
undersheriff is
tied.
union, right?
Yeah.
So,
The undersheriff is not union. There's positions below him that are union
okay,
that impact the management salary scale.
okay.
So it's a chain effect.
Right.
We have statute that regulates, so once they approve that, then it just kinda goes up.
So every year when we get done with the union contracts, we then go ahead and calculate what the compression is on the management pay scales and apply that as well. So in this case, it just happens that it's the same as the general county COLA, the 2%. There's been other years where, you know, through bargaining and unions and that whole process, it's been higher and then compression's higher, and so we come with a different recommendation.
And so the statutory says that each position has to be paid that much higher, or they can't have to be paid?
The only thing the statute says is the sheriff has to be paid more than every employee that he oversees. Where the statutes come into play with union bargaining is it says that there are certain considerations that have come into play when deciding union position salaries. Comparables is one of those. If we can't reach an agreement at the bargaining table and we go to an arbitrator, the arbitrator has to look at those statutory requirements to see whose offer meets the requirements best and then makes a decision.
Michael, what's the difference between what we're paying the sheriff now versus the undersheriff amount dollar wise?
Not much.
It's on this sheet.
It is very,
Oh, okay, got it, okay.
very
Sorry.
minimal. I mean, we're talking about 1%.
I think it's behind the
Difference.
sheet you're on,
Yeah.
everybody go. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Okay, so on to commissioners. I've got 3 options on here and I have a preference on those options. The first is developing some type of, and this one has been rejected by the board several times, so if you want me to stop bringing this recommendation, I'd be more than happy to take this off as an option. But at one point I thought of, well, maybe what we do is we set a percentage relationship between the sheriff and the commissioners and put the commissioners at 20% below the sheriff's salary. So that is still an option on there. Another option is to provide the 2% COLA that the rest of General County is receiving. And then the third option, which is my preferred option, and I will explain why, is that there was a 3% COLA applied to General County last year. This committee recommended a 3% increase for the commissioners. The commissioners did not accept that 3% increase. So they received no COLA last year. My recommendation is that we provide the 2% COLA that we're providing everybody else, and that we retroactively apply the 3% COLA that they did not receive that I felt like they should receive should have received the previous year and what you guys approved the previous year. And the reason why that is my preferred recommendation is that having done this for as many years as I have, when I first got here as HR director, we had an issue where we had a lot of budget issues. I think pretty much goes without saying, and there was and I'm not second guessing how things were done in the past, but they wisely were trying to figure out ways to conserve money, and so they were stopped doing COLAs for a lot of years. The wage scales kind of got a little bit out of whack, and we had a problem where departments were having to hire, because we couldn't compare with competing agencies. We were hiring essentially underqualified individuals, training those individuals up to be qualified in their jobs, and as soon as they were fully qualified in their jobs, they were going to take a position someplace else, and we were right back in the same boat that we were in. And so, working with the commissioners and department heads over the years, the philosophy changed to, okay, we still have the same budget constraints, but we're gonna have fewer employees with the money we have, pay them a better, more competitive wage, and try to do as much as we can with what we have, but not deal with this recruitment and retention problem that we've had for the previous, 5 to 10 years. I'm concerned, because one of the things that we've had to do with this committee in previous years is trying to catch up the board of commissioners and other elected officials' wages up to where they should be. The public perception then from that is oh wow, they're getting a 6% or they're getting a 7%, when it's like, no, they didn't get anything for 5, 6 years or 10 years. Now we're just trying to catch them up. I'm worried that if we go back into that way of doing things, 3 or 4 years from now, we're gonna have the same issue. At some point then, we're trying to catch everybody up, and the public's going, well, wait a minute, what, we're not getting any cost of living increase in the public, but we're giving our commissioners that. It's like, no, they didn't get anything. So again, I'd like to set the wage scale fairly and track with cost of living, just like we do with every other position in the county.
Okay, I have a question concerning that.
Yes.
So if we do that, and we voted, if that was passed, if that was recommended by this committee, what would happen if, because these are elected officials, if our county elected someone that wasn't qualified to take over that job, and we have to hire a manager to do what a new commissioner is unable to do, because we're fortunate enough to have 3 commissioners that are also managers. They're admin for our county. They split that duty between the 3 of them, and they take that task on. Other counties do not. They pay for administrators to administer their county. So if we pass this, then a new commissioner comes in, do they get the reward of that, even though they're unable to do the job, and we would potentially have to hire admin to do what they're unable to do?
So so the retroactive would be for the work that had previously happened in the current fiscal year. Anybody elected starting next year, there is no retroactive. They hadn't worked here. There's nothing to retroactive to. This is their salary starts whatever the salary is set on January 3rd or whenever they're sworn into office, and they go forward.
Okay, yeah, because that's been a concern of mine with people, statements that I've heard from the community, it's like, I just wanted to make sure that if somebody did happen to get elected that isn't qualified to manage, and we have to hire a manager, as compensation, who's gonna decide what that manager's salary is, or where that's gonna come out of our budget?
That'll happen this time
Next year. Okay, okay, that's good to know. I was concerned about that.
Michael, in looking in these different counties, do you know off the top of your head, for example, how many commissioners Deschutes County has?
I believe they have 3.
3,
Yep.
and then Lynn County,
I believe they have 3 commissioners as well.
okay, Yamhill probably 3.
Yes.
One of them has 5, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one it is.
Do
you know, Dan?
Lane County, you go down further, Lane County has 5.
5, okay. And does Jackson County have 5 or 3?
I
Medford.
believe Jackson County has 3.
Do you know,
So
Dan?
what I would
I think that's right.
recommend, understand what you're doing, but since this is an election year, and I feel as though that I would recommend that we give the commissioners the 2% COLA raise. And leave it at that, and then it's up to them whether they accept that.
They rejected our 3% COLA commission, our recommendation from last year, correct?
They did.
So, if they didn't accept that last year, and so you're recommending going with just the 2% and not the
Yes,
third recommendation of
yes.
the 3% we offered them last year and the 2%, which they can reject that, but that would keep them current. I mean, that would keep our recommendations current, correct? Is that what you're proposing?
My proposal is that we give them the option of accepting or rejecting the 2% as well as the 3% that they rejected the previous year.
Yeah, so that they have the option to play catch up themselves to keep them current, but they don't have to. So if we make that recommendation, they can take the 2, they can take as much as, they can take anywhere from 0 to 5, or they
That
can
would be
take none.
correct. As long as it's within what you recommended, that discretionary amount, 5%. Yes.
I still think the 2%.
I tend to lean towards Tom's motion as well. I feel like I understand some of the justifications of retroactive stuff. That can be, if we do that and they reject all 5% this year, so then next year,
Yeah.
is the recommendation of the 5 retroactive and another 2 or 3? Yeah, I mean, you can get in that where I feel like it could be, it's never ending, you know what I mean? And so, I feel like the 2% is reasonable, and it's what county has gotten for the most part in a lot of their agreements.
We did
And
get 3% last year too.
what's that?
We did get 3% last year as well, so.
So I'm gonna go ahead and second Tom's motion at this point.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for 2% COLA. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so moving on to the assessor. So again, same process. We look at the comparators. This one is also one that we use as kind of relationships for the other elected officials. It's my evaluation that the assessor's office, in comparison to the other clerk, surveyor, and the treasurer, has the higher set of qualifications required for the job, the higher level of responsibilities, the larger number of staff, and the higher level of complexity within the work. And so that is why that position is set higher than the other 3. And we kind of set a relationship of the other 3 being 5% below the assessor. This one, again, when you go into the comparators, trying to figure out apples to apples, it can be kind of a challenge. If you look at the comparative information that was provided to all of you, which you guys got a really small sheet, I think.
We did.
It's
tiny.
Landscape.
Thank you.
So that would make it.
Thanks, sir.
Easier to read, thank you, I appreciate that.
So, this is every year, Lynn County puts together this salary summary, and they do this for their own compensation committee. We provide them information and data, and all that we ask is that we get a copy of this, because then it helps us in terms of having one ourselves. They divide it into larger and smaller counties, kind of based on their own criteria, which is fine. But when you look at the assessor there, you know, you got some outliers. You have a non-elected assessor in Benton County that is almost double what most other counties are paying. You have a Yamhill County assessor who's also the tax collector as well. So our tax collector is Dan, does those duties, so they have additional duties. So, and they pay slightly more than I think the median group that's in there, the Douglas, Josephine, Lincoln, and Polk. You look at those groups as a group together, I think we're fairly within range of those other counties as well. So, you know, I guess you could, depending on who you are, you can make arguments, well, maybe we should be paying more like Benton County, or you can make the argument that, you know, Benton County is really the outlier. If you look at ourselves, Josephine, Lincoln, and Polk County, of these smaller counties, we're all paying about the same, roughly.
So I have a question. When we got this before, when I had it made up by, it had populations. Are these in order by the size of the county?
That's the top line.
Very top line, yeah, has the,
Oh, that is the population. Okay, sorry, excuse me.
so, you know,
It
Lincoln's
is
half the
in order
size of Douglas County.
So,
Josephine and Polk are fairly similar. When you start going to the larger county, Lynn County is fairly similar in size to us, although a little bit bigger than us.
So what are your thoughts on this?
So my thoughts is maybe at some point, we need to take a look at, where we need to be, maybe we need to be a little bit higher. At this point, I don't think that's the issue. My recommendation is the same COLA as the rest, which is the 2% COLA.
I would so move on Michael's recommendation on that.
I would second that.
any more further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Do you have a comment, Dan? Oh, sorry. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
So clerk, surveyor, and treasurer, we have set those historically at 5% below the assessor for the reasons I cited earlier. The clerk, when I look at the comparators and what we're recommending, I think we're sitting pretty good within kind of where the averages are there. So I think doing a 2% COLA there is fine. The surveyor, though, we're gonna have to at some point, I think, have some discussion around what we're doing there. So a lot of counties have gone away from the elected surveyor and they're appointed surveyors, and you can see the salaries are really kind of starting to bump up, and I think it's as a result of that. I think some of it has to do with just one is the qualifications to be a surveyor are pretty unique, and I don't think I think the job market's pretty tight. Just in our own recruitments that we're doing here internally for positions in that office, it is tough to find qualified individuals to do the job. And so, you know, whenever you have a position that few people can do, obviously the what they can demand for pay starts to go up as well. So, and then as you saw, you know, I've spoken to Ron several times. I think Ron would really like to find a replacement at some point and move on to retirement. We're grateful that he ran and successfully for re-election. He's done an excellent job there. But at some point, I think we're going to have to look at that one a little bit closer about how we do that. I think that should be a discussion also throughout this year with the commissioners about how they want to structure that position. I've had no discussions with them about this, so I don't want anybody, you guys or the public that might be listening, to think that there's any kind of plan in place to change it from elected to non-elected, because there's not. But I think we would be foolish to not at least vet out all the pros and cons either way, and then try to figure out what is the best way to compensate that position so that we can get somebody qualified in there to do the job. At this point, I don't think there's anything urgent we need to do. My recommendation is still the 2% COLA that we're doing for everybody else, but it's some work that I need to do, the board needs to do, and I think that next year when we come around and have this discussion again, it's gonna be a heavy discussion about how do we manage that.
What's built into the budget?
Pardon me?
What's built into the budget?
2%.
Percent, okay.
It's a unique, I mean, to your point, of the 11 counties we have on this sheet here, 3 out of the 11 are elected still. Everybody else is
Everybody
not
else is
elected anymore.
non-elected, yeah.
Surveyor side.
So what does it
And
take to be
I think that's because, there's, the thing about elected positions is really the policy work that they bring to bear. So your commissioners come in and they have overarching policies, and those policies get honed down into specific day-to-day work that all the departments do, but it really starts with that larger policy work. When you're talking about a surveyor, it's, in my opinion, less about policy and it's really about the technical aspects of the job. Marking the corners and, making sure the land lines are all correct and doing all of that kind of stuff. And so you're really talking about a position, still has to manage people, manage a budget, there's still department head level responsibilities, although it's a small staff, so that's fairly limited. And they have a support staff that they can use to help with all of that. But we're really talking about it being a real technical professional type position, not necessarily a policy position, which lends itself, I think, is why you see these other counties, because it lends itself towards being an appointed position rather than an elected one.
So one more question. I see that there's 2 counties, one that has no county clerk and one that has no county surveyor. If you don't have a county surveyor, if something happens to Ron or he quits and we have no surveyor, how does the county cover that? Don't we have to go out and hire a private contractor?
So you could, that's one option, be contracting out. The other one is if you have, I think we have a deputy surveyor could, or somebody in that position that's qualified could step up and is an interim. Until that, as elected position, there's a whole statutory process for refilling the position and come on another election. But I think there's a provision of law that the deputy steps in as the acting until another election is held.
You find that this position, at times you almost have to go out and seek and talk somebody into running
That's
for
what
the
So-
position.
So not sure what Ron's been doing, but I do know that they are that Ron's been, in terms of finding somebody to run, I know Ron's been very active in finding somebody who could come in and work underneath him who could possibly then run at some point in the future. So, yeah, there's a limited number of people who are qualified, even a smaller number of people that would be interested in doing that, even a smaller number that would be interested in actually being an elected, running for office. So, it's a very unique group that you would be able to find to do that job.
So which ones of these positions were unopposed? That nobody ran against, nobody else wanted the job in the county?
So the assessor was unopposed. And
Treasurer
the
surveyor was.
surveyor was unopposed. The clerk was not on the ballot, correct, Dan?
Correct.
And
And treasurer wasn't, they were both last time.
treasurer was on, yeah.
So the 2 positions we have that we already did the assessor's salary and now we're looking at the surveyors, nobody else in our county wanted these jobs. Is that my assumption from nobody running against them, or nobody wanted to be an elected official?
That's not a question I could answer. It could be either one.
Yeah.
Could be all the above.
Yeah.
Or both, yeah.
That's probably indication that the wages aren't enough or somebody else would be seeking those positions, don't you, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if we
getting a bargain.
went with the 2% for the surveyor, but actually, we're not giving a salary increase to the individual as much as we are to the office. And I really think that we should, this obviously is very low in comparative numbers to others in the state. Could we bump that up, the 2% COLA plus a 5% for that position?
Yeah.
We need,
I think that's fair.
yeah, over the several years where our county commissioners were paid so low, the object was to bring them up to more, closer to a state, at least a state average. And, so I would move that we,
But before we, if you don't mind,
Sure.
Tom, I don't dissuade you. Could you calculate what 7%, Dan, would look like? And so we know what we're talking about in terms of a wage.
that's $4,500 plus another 2%. That's $6,000, so that brings up to 101. Still.
About 6,600, 6,671 increase.
So
Up to 101.
101, so
Yeah.
it's almost essentially what we're saying for the assessor.
Correct.
Could almost set him even. The assessor.
Set these even, set it with the assessor. That'd be almost,
Set the same as the assessor.
It's getting closer, yeah.
within,
So maybe a 6% would put it right even with. I'll still make that, I'll make that motion, we give the COLA, increase to the surveyor plus a 5% raise. Plus a 5% increase for that office. Put it comparable to others in the state. I mean, it doesn't even compare to others in the state, I mean, we're far below.
Well,
So you're talking about the surveyor only, not all three positions, right? You're talking about the surveyor.
Just a surveyor.
Okay,
so you basically, it's a,
7%
yeah,
is what he's
7%
talking
total.
about.
Okay. Yeah, I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So that's gonna give the treasurer. So now we need to go back up the page to the clerk, correct?
so yes, we've set this historically at 1/3 of what the clerk and surveyor, so at this point, it'd just be the clerk salary. It is not a full-time position.
That's a treasurer.
Excuse me, the treasurer, yes, the treasurer, so
So you're dropping down to the treasurer is what you're
I'm
discussing.
sorry, did we already, we
We
finish
have
the
not done the
clerk?
clerk.
Not do
Oh, we did not finish the
That's why I
clerk.
said we
Oh,
need to go
I'm
back
sorry.
up to the clerk because that's
sorry.
why I was asking him if he was meaning all three positions or just the one.
Yeah,
So the clerk, we need to go back up to.
so our clerk, you look at,
Sorry, jeez.
we're right in the comparators there. I mean, we're right within striking distance or average there, in my opinion, especially with the smaller counties. So to me, I think we're good, and I would go with a 2% increase there.
So your recommendation would be to give the clerk the 2% COLA raise instead of the 5% you recommended here?
You know what?
It's
You could-
5% below the
That's
assessor.
5% below the assessor. is what
I
yeah.
understand that, yeah.
Yeah, but,
The 5%.
oh, I thought you were saying maybe do the same thing we did with the surveyor, which was 2 plus the 5%,
Well-
keep them the same. And I would be fine with that even, given kind of where we're at comparatively. I mean, we're a little bit below. That would bring us into being, you know, a little bit above the small counties, but certainly still below the larger counties. So maybe applying what we just did with the surveyor to the clerk, keeping them the
I
same.
mean the assessor, or the clerk. Oh, I see.
The surveyor.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
the survey, doing that 2% plus 5. I mean, they don't have the same comparative issues as the surveyor. I mean, it's not as dramatic, but when you look at the larger counties, which I think we in some ways also compare to.
So last year, the clerk got a 3% COLA raise?
Right.
Okay.
historically, have those been the same salaries with the surveyor and the county clerk?
They have for the last 5 years now.
When we made the change to methodology.
We're not bound to stick with that though, right? We can
Absolutely
change
not.
those
We
salaries.
could change
We can
how we do
recommend
that.
changes, yeah, okay.
I would move that we do the 2 and the 5 to keep the county clerk and the surveyor the same. That's how we can, and you look at the larger counties and certainly in the smaller counties, I mean, it puts it in a pretty good position of comparables to the other counties. And again, I think the county clerk isn't, I mean, they're all important positions, but I would like to bring that up to a more comparable figure. So
Another smaller.
I would move that we do the 5% and the 2%.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Any comments? I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And did our county clerk wasn't up for election this time, right? He's up, okay. Then now the next person would be the treasurer. And you wanna talk about our treasurer's position, cause it's not the same as, we don't really have the same comparisons, do we?
Right, it's really hard to compare.
It is very
There's some other counties that kind of, have part-time treasurers as well. Kind of what we've decided is that we take it at 1/3 equivalency salary-wise to what we're paying the clerk and surveyor. That's still my recommendation, based on the duties that it does and the amount of workload that it has.
I would make the motion that we follow that formula of the clerk surveyor salary, 1/3 of that. But for the treasurer.
I'd second that.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
All right. I have some discussion now about Oregon ethics law. So ORS 244 is the statute that describes Oregon ethics law. It's been around a long time, as long as I've been working in government. I've been working in state and local government since 1999 now, so going on 27 years of doing that. So you would think that by now there would be a very clear understanding of what Oregon ethics law is and what's included in it and what's not included in it. That's not the case. So this last year, so there's a couple ways that we get information about what does Oregon ethics law mean. So we have the statute. There have to have the Ethics Commission puts out this guidebook that's been around forever, something that I consult with all the time. And the cornerstone of Oregon ethics law is that it prohibits public officials from using or attempting to use their official positions or offices to obtain a financial benefit for themselves, relatives, or businesses with which they are associated if that financial benefit or opportunity for financial gain would not otherwise be for the position or office held. So you can't use your official position as a public official for some financial gain. It is not the same opportunity that the public would have as well. So that's kind of the cornerstone of that. You'd think that'd be fairly simple to understand. So obviously it's not quite that simple. They need a whole manual for that. And not only do they have a whole manual for this, oftentimes to try to figure out in a particular issue whether or not it is a violation of Oregon ethics law, you've got to get on their website and do a search through hundreds of their legal opinions and advisory opinions that they have on any particular subject. So there's oftentimes people come to me and say, hey, is this an ethics law violation? I don't know, but let's try to figure it out. Let's parse through the statute first, through the handbook, and then let's go, and if we still can't figure it out, we'll go through and take a look at all of the advisory opinions as well. So, like I said, I've been in state or local government for going on 27 years now. They recently, this last year, came down with an opinion that is the opposite and contrary to anything that I had ever seen previous to that, nor has anybody else seen in local government during that time period. And essentially what they stated was that ORS 244 prohibits public officials from using or attempting to use their official position, and I already said that part here. And they were talking about if that financial gain or avoidance or detriment would not otherwise be available but for the fact that their office or position. So the Ethics Commission interpreted this prohibition to apply to any food or beverage provided by a public body to its employees and officials. So again, 27 years, I'd go to a training that we would have. That training would go all the way through the lunch period. For efficiency purposes, they'd provide us with a lunch. Obviously, it usually just be a sandwich and a bag of chips and a soda. That now is an Oregon ethics law violation unless we state that it's part of their official compensation package to receive that benefit. So what we have done is, for our employees, is under the advice of our legal counsel, and I've attached a copy of it, we changed our personnel rule, it's attachment 1, personnel rule, to cover that so that, and again, we're very, very tight here with our budgets. We're talking about very rare and occasional occurrences where an employee is provided a food or beverage by the employer on the job. But when it is provided, it's it's always done because there's some benefit to us as the employer in terms of efficiency of operations. So it's either they're working through a training or oftentimes what they'll do if we've got unexpected road work that happens. So they're working on a project and it doesn't make sense to shut down right that moment at whatever their quitting time is. And we need to have them work another 5, 6, 7, 8 hours to finish that job for a public safety reason or because it's more cost effective to not have to, you already have the paving equipment out there or whatever it is that they need to do. Sometimes they'll run down and they'll grab a stack of pizzas, come back, give the crew a quick meal and then back onto the machinery again. That would be an Oregon ethics law violation. There are also some conflicting laws in all of this, and that Oregon OSHA recently came out with some guidance and rules around prevention of heat injuries, where we're required, when we reach certain heat levels and humidity levels, we're required to provide beverages to the workforce. So what we did is we put in our personnel rules that the official compensation package can include these things so that we don't have an Oregon ethics law violation. The same rules apply to all public officials. So while we're able to change the rules for our employees, compensation committee is the only one that can change the compensation for elected officials. It's my recommendation, and I have a attachment 2, a recommended policy that mirrors the same policy that we have for our employees that would allow our elected officials to be able to receive from the county the same, if there was a lunch meeting or something like that, they would be allowed to have that meal or beverage and it not be an ethics violation as well. So, questions?
So, if they go to a meeting and someone serves them lunch, you would,
It's only if the county provides it.
Only if the
oh,
county
only if
provides
the
it.
county provides it,
Right.
okay, I'm like, wow, this is really broad.
Yeah.
So,
So,
okay,
and so it applies to all public, and it defines what public officials are. Public officials also include volunteers. So this volunteer board, you guys are public officials by virtue of how it's written in the statute. So if we provided you coffee this morning or a bottle of water this morning, that would have been an org and ethics violation. Had it not been that I had already changed the personnel rules and you guys already encompassed in that. So we're really just talking about the elected officials at this point.
So I would, we need a motion.
Yes, we need a
I would
motion.
so move to, accept, Michael's recommendation on that, issue.
I'm not supposed to second, right?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Any other comments, suggestions? Excuse me?
Are you allowed to take public comment?
Am I allowed to take public comment?
You don't know or not?
It's Heather, the assessor.
Heather, the assessor, would you like to hear public comment from her?
Sure.
I'm not opposed to it.
Heather Koffel, the elected assessor for Douglas County. Thank you for all that you do, appreciate it. I just want to simply make a statement, as you pointed out, I did run unopposed because you want my job. And not only that, you do have a requirement of education and continuing education throughout the entire time of my career. I have been in this career for over 20 years, so I could make significantly more money if I was out in the private industry. I don't want to be there. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy my staff. I've worked very hard to get them there. So I just wanted to simply point that out, because obviously I have a vested interest in what you guys have been discussing. So I'm just making sure that you realize that my position is just as important as some of these other elected positions.
Yes, question,
Yes,
your continued education is not paid for by the county?
it is.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yep,
Okay,
and so is all my staffs, because my staff is also required to take continuing education, so I also.
so
do
you're
it.
compensated for your time and the cost of the class? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay, I appreciate your comments,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Suggestions? Are you thinking something, Tom?
No, I
Okay.
wanna thank you for,
Yeah.
all the time you put in, and Dan, you too. I look back on these and I know that the treasurer, for example, we reduced that quite significantly several years ago because a lot of it was being picked up by the finance part. And so, I think we've followed along now. Correct me if I'm wrong, the commissioners can still reject all of them or just theirs? All of our, that we've,
Our recommendations, what we've just done here today.
Reject them all. It's,
Okay.
these are recommendations, they're not.
Okay.
It's that.
We're making recommendations to them and then they get to approve or deny them. Have they ever denied any others?
I don't believe so.
Just their own.
Not that I know of.
Just their own.
You've just denied their own.
Deny anybody but themselves.
That's what I thought as well. Okay, I wanna thank you guys very much for all your hard work and your staff that helps you and makes our job a lot easier. Cause I remember the first year I came in, I worked my butt off to get some of these numbers. So I'm very appreciative that that information's gathered for us, so we can come in here and have a more educated decision-making process.
Hey, Katie, I'm glad you've asked for all that information. I think the more transparent the process, the better. I'm glad that TV cameras are rolling and they can hear and see this and what we're doing. There's nothing secret about this. We really want to make sure the process is fair. We've got a solid methodology that's based on good logic and kind of industry standard. And you guys do an excellent job as a committee, asking great questions and trying to figure out how to get to where we need to be with compensation for these elected officials. So thank you, thanks to all of you.
I have a recommendation for next year pertaining to the assessor and the surveyor. Is there some way you could go out and find out what the private sector makes, just as a comparison?
Yeah, so.
Could we get that information to have it next year, see how big the difference is? Like she
so-
says, she can make a lot more money in the private sector.
A lot more money using her skill set. I'm not sure again, you know, these elected positions are kind of unique. So I mean, if we were gonna do the same thing with a county commissioner, we would be looking at county administrators, we'd be
Yes,
looking at
yes.
CEOs, we'd be looking at,
Yes.
you know, cause it's kind of the.
And I
same.
did that, I did look at county
Yeah.
administrators, that was a lot of work.
And I get what Heather's saying, and I understand, and I think it's certainly a consideration that always should be in play, exactly what she said, you know, what could other people make elsewhere. We have the same issues within our workforce as well. You know, there's limitations in government, and I think that has to be recognized. There's also some benefits in working with government that's different than the private sector as well in terms of expectations on your time. Expectations around, you know, it's, you know, we have people who, with engineering degrees that could probably make a lot more, maybe in the private sector, but they also have a quality of life consideration that they're taking into effect as well. We're looking at a 40-hour work week here. You got your holidays and your vacations and those kind of things as well. So it's a balance, and all that has to be looked at. If you're looking just purely at annual salary, I don't think you're looking at the big picture, because if that was the case, we'd have a lot less people working here because it was all about money. It's not all about money. It's also about a lot of other factors.
Yeah, you can usually figure that out, cause most of them work by the hour. Their contract job is by the hour, and you can figure that at your average 40-hour week is kind of my comparison, is what I'm thinking anyways, is to be able to compare it with their average hours, just as a comparison, not
Yeah.
just to give us a number to look at and see, you know, it's just more information.
Right. Yeah.
Not that it's something we would be guided by.
The other thing too is like a professional surveyor. You know, they'd have to carry their own
Insurance, yes.
liability insurance,
Yes,
their own
yes,
expenses, their own risk
Yes.
management, all, you know, all of those
Yes,
kind of things, you know, what do they also, you know, so it's a, you know, like here, surveyor's got a legal question, doesn't have to go out and ask another attorney, goes straight to the county council office, and that doesn't cost that surveyor or surveyor anything to be able to do that, so.
any other comments?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Motion adjourned, meeting adjourned.